Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Starting things off tonight is Duke's Vintage listed this Gibson Thunderbird 4, apparently from 1964, that he called the chopped turd finish. If our headstock's looking like this, when it used to look like this, you know this thing's got some serious issues. And that's putting things lightly. Oh my goodness, what has happened to this thing? Somebody has chopped it up and modified it. About 5-10 years ago, you kept seeing a whole bunch of Les Paul Juniors that were chopped and modified like this. But I think this is the first Thunderbird that I've seen in a while. So normally the dimensions would have looked more so akin to this, or perhaps like this as far as the electronics go. But somebody thought that was just a little bit too extreme, so they rounded it off a little bit down here and just made it smaller. I feel so bad for it, but it's like my hornless SG guitar. Once you actually have these things in person and you play them, they have their own vibe to them. They have a certain energy that they exude. But this was definitely somebody's woodworking project. They wanted to strip the finish off, reshape it, do whatever their heart pleased. Because you gotta remember, there was once upon a time, this was just a used guitar, not a highly prized vintage piece. And that's usually when these types of modifications were done. Not always. But looking at the backside, it looks like that neck was heavily played. Possible it was also just sanded down. In fact, I would actually say the body shape doesn't look that bad from the back. And somehow, miraculously, no headstock repair. But oh, that hurts. It initially started life maybe is white. Then who knows what we've got hiding underneath that sticker. But how much was this chopped up thing? It was listed for $3,500. So let's try to put that into perspective here. Looking at the correct body style, looks like a lot of people are asking around 10 grand, sometimes around 15. That's about what I see on other websites too. This one's listed for about 12. Now those are just asking prices. Here's what Reverb shows for recently sold. So I think we could reasonably assume one in okay condition would at least bring you around $7,500. So then if we come over here, that's about half that price. Usually when you refinish a guitar, you lose about half of its value. Now, what happens when you start chopping it up and modifying it? Well, that's when things get a little bit dicey. But I had a feeling this listing would not last long for one big reason. Thunderbirds and Firebirds, the cool thing about them is they're actually neck-through guitars. The neck is inside of the body, and they have these little V-shaped cutaways where they put the mahogany wings together. This is a perfect project because somebody could just take those wings off the guitar, put new wings on, refinish it, but as long as they take photos of this to prove that there's never been a headstock repair, this is a really, really good restoration candidate. Whereas I guess, yeah, you technically could do that on an SG, but it'd be a lot more difficult. But this right here, my friends, is the reason why refinished guitars typically sell for less. Now, Gibson's recently been changing the way people feel about that as far as the mod collection and demo shop goes. It's because you never know what's hiding underneath that new finish. But now let's move on to our second guitar tonight. Alright, first glance, this one does not hurt anywhere near as much. That looks like a beautiful late 70s Les Paul custom. It's got the TP6 tailpiece, Nashville style bridge, still got the good gold hardware with just a little bit of wear. Why is this on the unfortunate fate list? Oh, 20th anniversary. That means this is a 1974-ish. Now, we had just recently documented this absolutely gorgeous, stunning example of a natural 20th anniversary Les Paul custom, but typically that wasn't a finish that was offered on this model. It would have to be a rare custom order or maybe a dealer ordered a small run. And when I saw this photo and a price tag of $3,000, of course I'm clicking on this to see what's going on here. And sure enough, it was stripped and sprayed clear. And I mean, the photos make this finish look fantastic, but that's the other thing you gotta know about refinished guitars online. You never know how it's actually gonna feel in person. The seller is actually being honest. He's saying it's not the best refinish in the world. It could use a little bit of final touches, but it looks pretty good in the photos, but maybe it just doesn't feel that great in person. But no, my friends, the reason why this one hurts is look at those pickup cavities. Oh, why? This started life as white, the most desirable finish because Randy Rhoads, everybody wants the white Les Paul custom from 74/75-ish because that was his guitar. But apparently somebody wanted it to be natural. If the finish is that bad, I suppose somebody could just redo it because it looks like we still have the original frets. Somebody's replaced our waffle back tuners with some Grovers, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. And ooh, we've got a very slight top separation in our three-piece top. But if you're going to refinish it, you could easily remedy that. But now looking closer at the electronics, somebody's put 79 electronics in here, so I wonder if this restoration / stripping of the finish was actually done in the late 70s. It's either that or somebody just bought these parts off of eBay and restored it at some point, because those are 79 dated pots as well, so that might have been a parted out guitar that they pieced all together. But naturally, that one did not last long, only 6 hours on the market. Next up, we gotta head over to Carter Vintage. I like to check in with these guys occasionally, and they had this weird Gibson from 1997 that I just had to click on. It's branded Viajante, something like that, 1997. Wait till you see this. It's a Gibson Blues Hawk. Now, we just recently reviewed the Nighthawk, but I'm kind of saving my Blues Hawk review until I find the right blue one. But going from that to this, yeah, some things have seriously changed. So when I first saw this, I was really hoping that this was like some weird limited edition 1 of 5 art pieces of a late 90s model that I'd never heard of, but unfortunately that is not the case. This is somebody's hand wood burning project. And I guess we could say hand done literally because there's hands on it. But you've got all these swirly patterns, the whole F-hole vibe just works with this. But then I noticed the knuckles on the hands, they look like they have eyes. That's kind of creepy. But no, they got these joints looking a little bit more familiar. So then I start looking at the rest of this guitar and it's like, it's like the Floor Masters from Legend of Zelda coming down to get you. And then they got all these eyes looking at you. It's got an interesting chocolate vanilla vibe going on here. However, coming to look over at this photo, it looks like maybe they just left the binding alone after all. Personally, I think this piece looks better from afar. It gets a little bit creepier the more you dissect it. Here's where things get really crazy. Your P90s were routed out for humbuckers. Then you've got these cream plastic rings matching the color of everything else. Looks like they might have added an additional tone control, but they did more than just the top. Do you see these sides? They've got more patterns going on there, all around the edges. Then they also did some more wood burning on the back. But you're probably wondering, what is this extra backplate back here for? The Blues Hawks actually had a dummy coil in the back to cut down on the P90 hum. So I'm curious if that's still in there, even though they've got the humbuckers. I wouldn't assume so, but who knows? If that's not enough, they decided to do some wood burning up the middle of the neck for some reason. Even in the middle of all the inlays on the neck too. Thankfully they left the fretboard alone though. But I really like the added touch of burning the side of the headstock. It looks good when viewed from the edge. Looks like they maybe even made a custom truss rod cover for this. So yeah, certainly an interesting one. Probably not for everybody, but I could see the right person maybe falling in love with the artwork and wanting to pay their asking price of $2,100. Although you can typically get one between $1,000 and $1,600, so that one is definitely priced at a premium. It's possible it's in on consignment, but when you're selling stuff in Nashville, an artist might see it, fall in love with it. It is unique to the point where maybe it doesn't necessarily belong within the Blues Hawk market anymore. It's more so a custom art piece. And our last ruined guitar for tonight's episode is another great piece from Fusion Music Thailand. This guy's always getting great stuff. So this time he's found a 2006 custom color 59 reissue, apparently aged by Tom Murphy in a quilt blue. Just like with all the guitars this guy sells, due to the environment that they're in, they tend to amber. But this one must have been left out in the sun if it started life as blue, because it's faded into almost a root beer-like finish. So now I'm curious, was it aged at the factory as far as the color goes, or did that just get bled out over time? Because I'm sure this aged guitar actually has some natural aging to it as well. But the back of the guitar actually appears to be a very dark blue color. And what's really cool about this is we actually still have the COA. These large paper ones were very common to get lost. Not because people didn't necessarily care about them in 2006. They're just too big to keep in the case. People didn't want to fold them up, so they would file them away, but then the guitar would get sold. They would forget to take it out of their filing cabinets, or they would just lose it. I'm glad we can finally keep our COAs inside our cases. But this photo right here is really fascinating to me. The aging job, you can definitely tell that's intentionally aged rather than normal finish checking, but it's kind of cool how it almost emphasizes the exact quilting pattern of the wood grain underneath. You got the whole pitchfork designs. Would it technically be better if it was still a blue quilt top? I don't know, but if you're interested in seeing something like that, how about you check out the Goro Udo signature Les Paul? No, the custom shop version. They later made Epiphones and Gibson USAs. But how much is this one? He's asking $9,000, which in the Les Paul reissue world with Tom Murphy aging, honestly doesn't seem to be that bad if you dig the color. Those were our main features tonight, but since we've got a little bit of time, let's do some additional hunting. We've got a Gibson Designer Series Flying V from 1983 in what they called Fire Mist Gold. I remember initially clicking this one, hoping that, okay, maybe is it a custom color? I mean, generally Designer Series means you got those weird squigglies on it. That was not the case on this one. It is a custom finish. That made me take a pause for a second, because this has the finish everywhere. But did you see what they did here? They've exposed the alder body, which at least shows 5 pieces that we can see here. There's probably at least 7 or 8. That is insane. But they just have the finish along the edges. It's like a natural burst into this whole fire mist gold. The neck has a similar thing going on where they just have one straight line of paint and then the rest of the natural maple neck is exposed. So at first I thought they were trying to do like an extended stinger. They could have made this line extra thin and then got away with a double stinger, but they didn't. But it looks like there's some pretty nice figuring in that maple neck too. That's a cool one. But as far as cool reissues go, here's an old one from 1995. So you gotta remember, the first historic custom shops were done in late 1993. And then 1994 is that first full year. So this one is right after that first year. Now, I don't think Tom Murphy was still part of the picture at this point, but this has a pretty nice top for one of those. I love these early 90s historics because they're unique. They've got their own thing going on. Some of them have explosively good tops. If you're looking for the most accurate reissue, nah, they're really not that good in that aspect. But they are historically important, just like the prehistorics are. And then to round out tonight's episode, we've got this Gibson Les Paul Custom with a Wapple neck and a mahogany body. I'll be honest, this custom gives me the heebie-jeebies. It's very popular for people to modify these Cherry Sunburst Customs to have the cream plastics, and it looks so much better. It kind of gives you Ace Frehley vibes. However, most times this is not stock factory original. Like, we can tell the knobs are non-original on this, so that likely means everything else has been replaced. But I always give the benefit of the doubt until I've seen everything. So going through the photos, everything's looking pretty standard. I was kind of figuring this would be like a 1974-ish. But then I saw the neck. Wow. What a Wapple neck. That's just great. 3-piece Wapple, in fact. And the serial number definitely puts you within that whole 74, 75-ish era. But here's the thing that kind of freaks me out about this one. The heel looks a little bit strange, like it's not the normal Gibson style. It very well could just be the photos. But there used to be a photo that kind of showed the headstock, and that also looked a little bit strange. In this era, you would generally have a big honkin' volute back here, and we don't have that. So it's very possible that this could have been a NAMM show display piece, and they decided not to do the volute and they gave it a really fancy neck. It's also equally possible that somebody has just straight up replaced the neck. There needs to be a little bit more of an investigation on it, I think. All right, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day. And you might even enjoy this next one.